This is Duke University.
I think there were a number of things that enabled us to scale. Some of these things may seem really elementary. I mean, we had this process of developing these 3 to 4 to 5 year plans, depending on the era, where we would step back and say, okay, where do we want to be? What capacity do we need to get there? And then we would go out and work to build the team that we needed at the end of that plan and raise enough funding at the front end to enable us to make upfront investments to get there. And that process served us well over and over and over again. It enabled us to, transform our team. It enabled us to access the funding resources necessary to actually be able to scale in a way that wasn't totally hand to mouth. So that approach really worked for us. There were other elements of it. I think without the growth funding approach, which was a piece of that, it would have been really hard to imagine getting where we were trying to go. If I could start all over again, the thing I would do differently, and I think this emerges really from the nature of our particular work, actually, but I would put at the very center of our work in any given community an effort to convene diverse stakeholders in that community together with our own folks to really center ourselves on what are we aiming at for kids. And I honestly believe that if we had done that initially, and if we even did it now, we'd solve the top 20 challenges we face. It actually truly, on every front, from how do you work in deep partnership with others in communities, to how do we ensure our people are working with urgency towards the right ends, to how do we keep folks engaged collectively, putting that at the center of the work, and then building the space to constantly come back together around that big question, which obviously is outside of ourselves, but I think it would, and it's what we're trying to do now, I think it would take our work to a much higher level. It's interesting because when you say, what's the one thing in the social innovation space I would change? One thing I would say is, we need many, many more people who've experienced themselves the inequities that we're working to address leading the work. And I think there are many barriers to entry, for folks who are coming from low-income backgrounds or coming from various marginalized groups and whatnot at every stage along the way. And I think if we can come together and figure out how to address some of those barriers, we'll become far more effective as a social change sector. We really believe that maximizing impact globally is going to be about two things working together. It's going to be strong local entrepreneurs who have a vision for adapting this into their context, plus a global organization that can enable everyone to share with each other. And I think that kind of theory, that's going to be the thing that both breeds innovation in the hands of all these local entrepreneurs and then enables us to capture the innovations and spread it, thus accelerating impact. And so that theory of change led us to the choices we've made, which has been to say, honestly, there's very little that has to be shared, and it's all kind of principles-based. Everyone shares the same unifying purpose or mission. There are about 8 unifying principles, half of them programmatic and half of them organizational, that everyone needs to live into. And there's a set of core values that people need to be committed to, whenever we're working together across the network, living into those values, and that's it. There's nothing prescribed. So in our case, for example, you would say we are committed to recruiting and selecting as many as possible of our country's most promising leaders to channel their energy towards our mission. But how you recruit, how you select, despite the fact that we've got all sorts of research-proven models and whatnot, totally up to you. And then we've got this global organization helping people make the best possible choices by making sure that they understand what's been learned in other other contexts. But we really deeply believe we don't have any cookie cutters. We refuse to give cookie cutters because we think actually they have to own the answer and pursue like what for their context is the right answer.